Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I am your host, Mike Vierman, and I am here with my friend and trusty producer in person for the first time in a while.
I know. It feels so good to be home.
Max Kerman. Max, what's going on?
Not much. Before we start the show, though, I want to encourage all of our listeners to subscribe to the show on iTunes and to leave a rating in the comments, because that actually makes a huge difference. So if you can do that and tell your friends about the show, it makes a huge difference on our end, and we really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
It's true. Today on the show, we have Tom Chaplin, lead singer of Keane.
Yes.
Very interesting interview. We'll get to that a little bit later. But first, Max, the last time I saw you was at about midnight, just after you'd rocked Copps Coliseum in Hamilton to what? Thousands and thousands of people in a sold-out arena.
It was wild. 10,000 people in Hamilton. And it was our biggest show of the tour, of our morning report tour. And it was an awesome day. There's we've been getting so many nice notes from people that have come to the show and just saying congratulations. And there's no way to be aw shucks about it, or oh, we got lucky or something. It was just yeah, it was the fucking best. It was so cool. It was yep. It was just as, what you sort of dream of your first sort of big show like that to end up like. And so, yeah, if anyone who's listening was at the show, thank you very much for coming. Yeah,
man, it was a great night.
And yeah, anyway, you and Danica looked like you guys were having a good night.
Basically we were taking a vacation, sort of our official honeymoon to Hawaii, and it just worked out. Essentially, we knew that show was coming up, which Dan and I really wanted to go to. And we also had a wedding for our friend Vanessa and Scott. That's actually this weekend. Mm-hmm. So we knew there was kind of a window between those two events where we could maybe jet off and get some sun. Anyway, we booked our flight for the first thing Saturday morning. Your show was the Friday night.
Yeah.
So we knew it would be a bit of a tall order to, go to your show, have a few drinkies, go home, be responsible, get up, and then,
Did you pack before the show? Is everything ready to go? Or did you drunkenly pack stuff?
Oh, Max, you know me. I love to prep. No, neither of us packed, actually.
Really?
Well, we worked Friday, so we came right from Toronto.
Right to the show, basically.
Right to the show.
Oh, man.
Joined up with everyone.
Oh, that would have stressed me out.
So I'm like, you know what? All my friends are here. Max is accomplishing all these great things. Him, the boys. I'm like, it's going to be a fun night. So I knew I was going to have some drinks, but I was like, because we're leaving so early, I'm going to take it easy. Danica, who I thought out of the two of us is the responsible one, decided to go whole hog. She just loves...
She was on fire when I saw her.
She loves herself some Arkells. The tunes were playing. She's like, I'll have another glass of wine. I'm like, okay, she's having fun. I'm going to keep drinking my beers.
So how was the travel? I haven't heard anything about the trip, so tell me about Hawaii.
Okay, so first things first, Danica enjoyed your show a little too much. So we wake up in the morning, realize we haven't packed. Okay. I mean, I knew I hadn't, but I've lived like this for a long time. Yeah. So I'm like, I got it easy.
As long as there's an H&M there, I can just go get some socks and underwear and I'm good to go.
I'm golden. Yeah. It takes me 2 minutes to go to the drawer. I'll take that, throw it in the thing, go. Yeah. She's like, I'm going to die. Oh my God. We only have half an hour before we have to go to the airport. She's like doesn't pack half her things. Okay. The travel, she was like, this is a nightmare. But it's all because she had such a great time.
Yeah, good.
So Hawaii. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was, man. It was 10 days in the sun. We were in Maui. We went to Kauai. We stayed in this little town called Kapa in Kauai. We basically drove to all the different beaches.
Did you rent a car?
We did. Nice. We got a convertible, those nice. Asshole tourists that are driving around.
Do it.
I know. It was awesome. I loved it. And the good thing about this vacation is that every moment I was just so appreciative and grateful, because I feel leading up to it, we've all been so busy, and I was like, I just need a break. And I haven't had a time off, a vacation where you'd read a book in the sand in a few years.
Even when the Champagne Boys go on a trip together, that's not really a break. It's you're kind of going full on 100%.
That's what I'm saying. I've been away in the last couple of years, but it's always a bachelor trip where you're basically just destroying your body and your mind. You do not take a break from drinking. You go full force.
And also family stuff is great and deeply rewarding in its own way. But it's also, you have to be kind of on, whether it's you're going to see the in-laws or going to see your family.
Yeah.
But if it's just your boo,
Oh, man.
Kind of turn it off a little bit.
And honestly, it's been years since I've had a thing where it was let's drive to that beach and hang out here for 3 hours. And I'm reading a book, and you don't have to be anywhere, and you're eating great food.
What book do you read?
I'm reading this book called The Hike by Drew McGarry. I also have a biography on the kids in the hall.
Oh, nice.
It's called This is a Book About the Kids in the Hall. And so it was just really nice to like read. And while I was away, as anyone that listens know, I'm a huge Raptors fan, and they traded for Serge Ibaka, which I would loved. I thought it was a great deal.
Nice.
I started jumping around the hotel room, and Danica's like, "What is going on?" And I was like, I tried to explain it all to her, but you know, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. Serge who? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it was like all those things people say about vacations. It recharged the batteries. It was amazing. It was a good time.
Fucking great.
I did manage to get drunk though a couple times. You know, because like when you travel with your partner, it's like you're doing like fun, like nice, kind of like, oh, we'll go for dinner and have like a glass of wine, but you're not like drinking like if it's like me and you are on a vacation.
Sure.
So this one day we go to a catamaran, and because we're deciding we're gonna go see the Napoli coast, and you know there might be some whales out there, whatever. But this catamaran has like an open bar afternoon, so it's like you get there in the morning, you eat some breakfast, and the guy's like doing the whole tour and all this business, and then they like lunch is ready and they open the bar. But you've been in the sun all day and you're out on the water and you feel like you're in like a Duran Duran video or something. So you start having a few drinks, and then a few turns into a couple more, and then we leave. We have a great time. But Danica's feeling a little bit sick from the boat. She's been out in the sun all day. The boat's been rocking. So anyway, we go back to the hotel, and she's like, "Babe, I'm like wiped. I've been in the sun all day. I'm just gonna like pass out." I'm like, "Oh, can I get you anything?" She's like, "No, I'm good." And she passes out like in her bathing suit, just falls asleep. Now, it's 5 hours behind in Hawaii. It's Saturday night, which is the night of the NBA skills competition, the dunk contest, 3-point shooting. So I throw on the TV. It's only like 4 o'clock in Hawaii. And literally, this all-star Saturday night is starting.
Oh, so good.
I got a fridge full of beer. I've already got a catamaran buzz going. So I'm like, don't mind if I do. So Danica's snoring. I crack a beer. By the time the dunk contest ends, it's only 7 o'clock in Hawaii or something like that. So I'm like, I look around. I'm like, babe, are you like, do you want me to get you anything? Although it was probably a little more sloppy than that.
I was gonna say.
She's like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, okay. I'm out of beer now, so I decided to go to the old resort bar.
Yeah, meet some of the locals.
I meet this couple from Michigan. Great people. This woman starts showing me their daughter got married. She's showing me photos. I'm like, oh, I'm from Canada. We're all becoming friends. He's like, you're from Canada. He's like, what are you drinking? And I'm like, oh, I'm just having like a Coors Light or whatever. He's like, all right. He's like, what kind of shot do you want? And his wife's like, oh, shots. I don't know. And I'm like, oh, please, you don't need to buy me. And he's like, get a shot. And I'm like, all right.
You could tell he was just looking for another dude guy to drink.
He was looking for a guy like me. Yeah. Totally. So he was like, what do you drink? I'm like, I'll drink anything. He's like, how do you feel about tequila? I'm like, all right, let's do it. Fire it up. Yeah. So now we're drinking. And now the whole time beside the bar is kind of like this nice kind of patio area where there's all these like, people that are staying at the resort and like tourists and whatnot. And there's these two guys like playing acoustic guitars. So they're playing away and they're doing, all the covers that you'd think they would do. And I'm sitting at the bar with this couple and we're all talking or whatever. And we start talking about our lives. She's talking about what they do. Eventually comes up like, oh, I used to be in a band. We tour, all that sort of thing. She's like, oh, like, what did you do in the band? I'm like, oh, in that band, I like sang and whatnot. So when these guys take a break, they come over to the bar, right? The one guy, and she's like, this guy sings, he should do a song. And now this is how I'm remembering it. What really probably happened is it's like, I could be up there doing a song. It's like, I could sing. So she kind of sets it up and dude's like, oh, like you sing. Well, did you know, like, what do you do? Do you want to get up and do a song? And I'm like, I'd do a song if you're going to let me do a song.
Oh, Mike, you can't turn down.
Oh, Mike, you can't say no. Because she's like, oh, do you play anymore? And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, maybe if I get really drunk, I annoy my friends by sitting at a piano and playing some Oasis or Beatles. So she convinced this guy to let me go up and do a song. I wasn't resisting too hard, Maxie boy. I'm on vacation. So I decided.
It's literally the night of your dreams, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just like watching NBA for 4 hours, drinking beer, and then, anyway, this happening, carry on.
It's like describing a fantasy. Yeah. So I go up and his dude is there, his partner, his other guitar guy. And now just before I'd left, maybe 2 days before I'd left on this vacation, I was flipping through the movie channel and I came across a Bruce Springsteen doc. I think is the album called The River, and he was going track by track through the river. Yeah. So he's sitting there with like his acoustic. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, I didn't know this would be like the biggest hit on the album. And he starts doing Hungry Heart in his acoustic. He's like kind of running through, he's like, and he does it. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, that sounds really nice acoustic. So it had been in my head anyway from like a week before. So I go up and I say to the guy, I'm like, hey, you know Hungry Heart, to the other guitar player. And he just kind of like nods at me like, sure. Yeah. Whatever. Again, Max, I'm pretty drunk. I've been drinking since like noon in the catamaran. It is now like 7:30. Yeah. And the restaurant area, like this resort area, is pretty packed. And the minute I sat down in the chair with the other guy, there's kind of like these tall stools.
Yeah.
I immediately was like, oh shit, in my mind, I'm actually more drunk than I thought I was.
It's like the different levels screwed you up.
Oh my God. I'm like, what was I thinking? And I'm like, okay, too much time's passed. Start playing something. So I know the 4 chords of Hungry Heart. So I start playing them and I'm going, shit, what's the first verse?
Got a wife and kids.
Yes. But I'm like, I'm just playing. I've just played the chords now for 2 bars and I haven't said anything. I'm like, how's everybody doing or whatever? And everybody like cheers. The guy beside me starts kind of like noodling on the guitar, doing like a little solo. And I'm like, wicked. This is giving me time to remember that lyric. I'm like, come to me. Wife and kids in Baltimore, Jack. So I get it. I get through the first verse.
Oh, good.
Baltimore, Jack. Yeah. Went over right. Never came back. Like I really don't know where it's flowing. Took a wrong turn and I just kept going. Now I'm into the chorus, right? Everybody's got a hungry heart. I'm going or whatever. The minute I get to that chorus, I've got like my kick. People are enjoying it. I haven't embarrassed myself too much. And by the way, it's probably a lot more sloppy in reality than how I remember
but this
it.
version's way better.
So I end up getting out of the chorus. There's no way I can remember any of the other verses. And I'm like, how do you get out of this gracefully where they know you're just a random guy and that you need to get out of this now?
Yeah.
So as I'm playing and dude's like now just kind of like noodling along, soloing, like kind of like accompanying me, I just said, thank you everybody. My name is Mike. I'm from Canada and I'm very drunk. So I'm going to go now.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
And they all clapped. And then that dude, like the second guitarist kept playing the tune. And then I was able to hand over the acoustic.
The walk off with the music.
The walk off.
That's perfect.
I waved, and then I went back to the bar, and then the guy lined up more shots.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you came out victorious though. I was worried you were gonna fall on the chair or something.
Maybe.
But
I like this version of the story way better. So yeah, that was really fun. And obviously Valentine's Day happened while we were there, and we did like an amazing picnic on the beach for Valentine's Day as the sun was like setting.
Damn. So here's a question.
Hit me.
When you're thinking about your next vacation,
Yeah.
Are you like, this is the way I want to do it? Or are you going, oh, I'm a little thirsty for some Champagne Boys action?
That's a great question. I didn't realize, because it'd been so long, how much I would enjoy such an extended amount of time of just kind of like relaxing and not like having to drink every shot. And it's like, you know, this never ending party. Like I loved the pace of just like hanging out at the beach, reading a book, not worrying about where you had to be. And like the scenery was amazing. So you ask, oh, like what's the next vacation? It's like, listen, we've got a bachelor trip coming up where we're going to be hanging out with all the guys. And I look forward to that trip for sure, because they're the funnest and you get the craziest stories. But I also really look forward to the next trip where her and I go and just eat great food and you work at your own pace and you don't care if you find a bar or not.
You're an adult and you're reading a book and you're taking it and you're giving yourself a real rest too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you can get into a groove pretty quickly, like as long as it's a fun thing. So it's like when you're out with your friends, you can get in a groove of like, we're going out every night and doing it. Obviously you need a break at some point, but also it's like when you're kind of doing something with like more one-on-one or something that's a little more laid back, you can get into that groove and be like, oh, this is awesome as well. No offense, Champagne Boys.
No offense.
I mean, a lot of flack for this in the group.
Yeah, actually, speaking of that, you got some flack. Let's get back. So Max did an interview. Where'd you do an interview, Max?
So we were in Halifax and we were doing a CTV news hit. And the reporter happened to be a big Arkells fan. She's from Ontario. And Nick was with us. It was just Nick and I doing the interview. And Nick he participates in the Champagne Boys activities more than anybody, but he doesn't like the name Champagne Boys. I think for a good reason. He, I think, assumes that it's like too fratty, or it's like he doesn't like the connotation of the idea of Champagne Boys, at least in his head. So anyway, he doesn't like to even mutter the name Champagne Boys, despite the fact that he does lots of Champagne Boys things.
He's in the group. He attends all the events.
He's at more events than me. So anyway,
as if we have events. By the way, events are like chicken wing night on Mondays at the Pheasant Plucker.
It's like literally yesterday. So then this reporter who is a big fan of the band, she's like, oh, so this album, you talk a lot about like personal experiences and going on trips with the Champagne Brothers. And my face kind of was like, oh God, Nick's going to hate this. Cause like now this reporter is talking about in Halifax, like talking about the Champagne Boys. And so my face just sort of goes,
and I like that she also called it the Champagne Brothers.
Yeah, she kind of gets the name wrong. Nick feels the question, but kind of like ducks the Champagne Boys angle, Champagne Brothers angle of it all. And then somehow, like, I think the nut caught wind of this interview and posted it in the group and started chastising me for being ashamed of my Champagne Boys heritage. And everyone was doing tisk tisk, and I just sort of ignored it all. But word is getting out all across the country.
So now you know, if you're listening, reporters or aspiring reporters.
Yeah. Only talk with the Champagne Boys on the podcast, not at Arkells interviews.
Yeah.
Though I secretly loved it.
Awesome. Well, today on the show, we have Tom Chaplin.
Yep. Brit, charming, revealing.
Very, he was very open in this interview. He didn't hold back on a lot. I felt like he was very open.
You know what's kind of interesting, and this is just an observation I'm making between the Canadian music scene versus the Brits, because we just toured with Frank Turner, who's a Brit, and also very much an open book in a lot of ways in terms of like his past and like what he's been through. I feel like Brits are just like way more explicit about talking about like their demons and like their like drug use and just like, and they more ascribe to that like classic version of like living that rock star life. Whereas Canadians don't really, like Canadian rock bands like don't really get into that stuff. Maybe like, at least amongst my peers, and we're like roughly the same age to a certain, it's like no one's really describing or like getting into detail about that part of their life. But it felt like he was like pretty open about everything he's been through.
He was. And it's like, the other thing is like Keane was a huge band.
Yeah.
Literally like on par with Coldplay in the early 2000s. Yeah. And he talks a lot about the creative process with Keane, his solo record now that he has out. And just sort of his life and his perspective on things.
Well, let's listen to it.
Let's get to it. So you came from Montreal.
Yes.
Did you drive in last night or this morning?
We were on a tour bus, so yes, we were overnighting it.
Nice.
And then 6:30. I had some breakfast TV stuff this morning.
Did you have to perform or just talking?
No, just talking. But you've got to be peppy for those things.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's hard to get up that early and sort of be energetic, I feel like. I mean, even just...
Unless you kind of entirely reset your kind of body clock, which is, I guess is what they do, right? Those people. So they sort of... I mean, because I've got a small child at home. She is my daughter.
It's not a random child.
Yeah, she's one I've collected. And, I have found, particularly as she's getting older, that I have to go to bed at sort of 8:30.
Yeah.
In order to guarantee myself a good 9 hours of sleep before she wakes up and is straight up and running.
Yeah, you have to shift the way you operate completely in order to get on her schedule.
Absolutely. But then I come out on the road and it's an entirely different vibe.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like laying in for hours.
Was there any thought of bringing the family on the road?
Nah, I don't think so. I mean, shit. So my daughter's nearly 3, but so the time zone just alone, that would be hell on earth.
I can't imagine
to deal with that. But my wife also, she just, I think she just feels like a bit of a spare part.
Sure.
If she comes out on the road, and
well, I think that's kind of what people don't realize is it's work, man.
Yeah.
It's not just like the road seems fun and the way you sort of fantasize it. People that aren't on the road, but when you get out there, it's a grind.
Yeah, I think it can be, yeah. I mean, I personally, I really enjoy it, but I wouldn't want anyone tagging along, playing sort of second fiddle to me. And, I just think, and that's been her experience in the past. Maybe when you kind of, you're playing stadiums or something and you can fly in, fly out. And
like if you're U2, you bring the whole team.
Yeah, that might be a bit different.
I kind of wanted to start and go back a bit. On this podcast, we like to get into the sort of minutiae of how artists do their work and how they sort of came to get into the business of creation. And I guess, I want to start what did your parents do?
They were teachers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in fact, my dad ran a school. It was like a little private school in the southeast of England. And in fact, my mum's dad had run it before he did. So it was kind of a family thing. Yeah. And but it was kind of like Hogwarts, it was a very old fashioned, it was a big kind of country house in the middle of this kind of beautiful parkland. So it was a really quite a magical place to grow up.
Yeah. And was it like a tight-knit community, like sort of?
Yes, it was. and you know, a lot of teachers who'd been there for a long time. It was a very kind of highly in-demand school in those days. Like, you know, a lot of people wanted to send their kids there just because it had this kind of very nurturing, very positive atmosphere to it. So, it was a very kind of, I suppose it is this kind of environment that encouraged a kind of creative or imaginative mind.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Was there a focus on the arts? I mean, is music or performing something that you, I guess, from a young age had a focus on or a goal?
I think I did. Yeah, I think I can remember. I mean, I've got lots of tapes of me, you know, singing crazy songs as a kid.
Like just sort of press and record on the cassette.
On the cassette, yeah.
Yeah.
And then off you go. I had a little Casio keyboard, you know, that was a couple of feet long, you know, and just talking nonsense into that. But very quickly I was in school plays, you know, musicals and performing in the choir. And I think it was clear that seemed... Certainly I sort of gravitated towards that as my kind of primary form of self-expression, you know, was singing.
Well, it's interesting, singing, but you also mentioned school plays. Was there ever a thought to acting for you?
I don't think so.
No.
It's a good question. I mean, I did carry it on when I was at my secondary school, but I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not sure I got the look for an actor.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a funny thing too, because it's like if you had a sort of a predilection for music, then maybe you drift toward that.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's something that maybe you considered for a second, like maybe I want to carry on with acting or something that I enjoy.
Yeah. I don't know what I think. The thing was, I got to like 14, 15, and writing songs became everything to me. Writing songs, and you know, that's when Keane sort of began, or at least when I was invited to join Keane. The other guys were older than me, so it was kind of, you know, do you want to come and join our band? And so I was kind of sucked into that big time, and I didn't actually really think about much else other than I want to have a record deal and I want to make albums and travel the world. And
that's the plan.
That's the plan.
There was no backup plan at that point.
Not really, no. I mean, I went to university for a year, and basically, I just took loads of drugs and didn't go to any lectures, and you know, it was a complete waste of time. And the others were saying, "Why don't you come down and live in London, and we'll really make this happen."
Yeah.
So I moved down to London.
And what was the stretch before you started seeing success? So you leave uni after a year. Yeah. You start hanging out with these guys who you've known from before, right?
Oh, yeah. We grew up in the same small town and went to the same school. So, yeah.
So you're all part of that sort of community. Yeah. You come back, you join this group. Yeah. How long was the stretch between sort of you joining and success?
I'd love to say it was very short, but it wasn't. I reckon. So I think I started singing in the band properly in about 97, 98. And then, so we got our record deal in 2003. But I moved to London in 2000. So it was three years or so after that.
That's a significant time, you know, where you're sort of grinding, gigging, not seeing sort of tangible success, maybe incremental or...
Absolutely. I think the thing for us is that we weren't great musicians, you know, but that's one of the great things about pop or rock music is that you don't have to be a great musician. You can just find a way of getting the job done. But I think if that is the case, it can take you a bit longer. And so, in order, you know... Tim, you know, who ended up writing most of the songs for Keane, I think it took him a while to, figure out how you do it.
Sure.
You know, and it was a lot about kind of always, you know, editing and paring stuff down so it became more and more concise. You know, I think if you listen to early Keane demos, they're often like 8 minutes long.
Yeah.
You know, with sprawling guitar solos. And,
that's like any filmmakers, you'll see it's like everybody wants to do a 3-hour cut or something, or musicians, the songs are so long. It's like, I think that's the thing you learn as you go along and become more pros. It's like brevity can be better and more effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that time though, I mean, was there ever a point where you go, shit, I got to get out of this band thing. Like nothing's happening. I got to make some money.
Oh, I think there was it was a constant fear for us that we were just idiots. This was never going to happen. And at that point, there were 4 of us. So we had a guitarist, and he left the band in 2001. And I think at that point it was like, is this really going to work? So we were just left with, at that point, bass, drums and voice. And actually it was a real stroke of luck in a way, because Tim, who writes mainly on the piano, he said, okay, maybe I should go to using the piano as my primary instrument. We'll just stick bass on a track, and then the kind of sound of Keane was born, this kind of piano-driven rock sound.
Out of necessity.
Out of necessity, completely. And then obviously coupled with Tim suddenly becoming much better at writing songs, and I guess my voice kind of coming into its own, it was just all the right ingredients at the right time suddenly.
Yeah. With, I guess jumping ahead to the wave, I guess from your perspective, what's the difference between, writing and process with Keane and then on your own?
Well, that's one of the things that was one of the main inspirations or draws, at least, for trying to strike out and do something on my own. The creative process was really Tim's, and he kind of owned that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. He wrote the songs, he would lock himself away. It wasn't a collaborative process in that respect. So he was very precious about that.
Is that something, though, through the course of the record you do with Keane, that you tried to maybe shift or say, hey, I want more of a say, or were you just fine with the way it had always been?
I think we were all okay with it, That said, I think Keane was a strange environment. There were elements of it that worked incredibly well, but there were also other elements of it that were probably very unhealthy. And I think that might have been one of them. I think Tim did, cling on to that role fiercely. I think the thing was, though, that, from my point of view, and my own part in it, I didn't really have the wherewithal and the motivation, the dedication to actually contribute creatively during those times. So I'm not saying it's his fault. I think it was partly my fault too, that I wasn't involved in that.
Do you think in general that there's sort of like maybe your disposition is more passive, or can you or could you be confrontational if you wanted to be?
I think we were mostly very passive,
right?
In Keane, I think that's, again, I think you need confrontation, in life.
Yeah, sure.
In order to get things done sometimes, in order to resolve situations. But I think we're very kind of English about the whole thing a lot of the time, and things would kind of fester away and never really be dealt with. There are things still that probably need dealing with, if we go back to doing more music. So yes.
So you moved to this record, and then it's like now you get a chance to sort of do all of these things that maybe you thought about. Yeah.
But the thing was, I think it's about being in a position to access that, the creative stuff. Obviously I had a big problem with drug addiction, and it ruined me, and it got worse every time I went back to it. But it also then gave me this moment of clarity where I looked at my life and I thought, if I carry on, I will die. The other option is to do something different and to turn my life around. And actually what it forced me to do, and I'm quite grateful for this, was to completely open up to, particularly one other human being. I had a therapist who I had known and trusted. And I opened up to him and I revealed everything. I'm not sure there's a single thing I'm holding on to that I haven't talked about. And we're talking like, those deep, dark, secret thoughts and things that we've all done, all us humans, we're often very scared to hold on to.
Sure, there's shame, embarrassment, whatever it is, that the reason we don't share those things. And it can be so cathartic to just say that shit out loud.
I couldn't believe it. I said these things out loud, and I was terrified about what that was going to do, and how is my therapist going to view me after I tell him about this or that? And of course, you know, the reality is the complete opposite. It opens you up to your emotional world. It allows you to live without a sense of kind of emotional baggage in your life, and to not be ashamed of being, you know, having bits of you don't like or bits of you that are wrong. You know, we're all like that as human beings. You know, it's just strange. We're all desperate to try and carry around this idea that we're actually perfect and life is okay. And
we try to project that too, which is bullshit. You know,
absolutely.
And we're all projecting some fake version of our best self.
I know, and things like Facebook and social media make that even worse. It's a kind of amplification of that.
Yeah.
It's a sickness, I think. So the thing was, I suppose what I'm getting to is that I talked about all of that stuff, and suddenly I had access to a part of me from which songs could come. I mean, the other thing was, obviously, I had all these problems, you know, and my journey out of them that I could suddenly write about. So I suddenly had a lot of material as well.
Things to write about, and then an openness to write about them.
Exactly. And I think that combination is really what the wave was born out of.
Wow. You know, you mentioned issues that you'd had with drugs. Do you think that that's something that, without sort of the success and such an unconventional career and being in a sort of massive band, is that something that happens anyway? Say you're a banker, or do you think that it's a function of such a sort of unique lifestyle? I
think it happens anyway. I'm absolutely convinced about that. You know, I think for me, a drug addiction it's using a substance to try and cope with a part of you that you're deeply unhappy with. And I think the roots of that, normally at least, go back a long way. I think being in a band and it being successful, there are things about that might accelerate a problem. And in fact, you know, the reason you might want to go into being in a band might be partly due to your own insecurity.
Sure,
as a person. You know, I do think that's true. I think one of the reasons I wanted to be a singer was actually, in reality, I felt incredibly self-conscious and unhappy with who I was. But I thought, if I can be the singer at the front of a band, maybe people will think I'm okay. You know, this idea of kind of hiding in plain sight. Of course, what I wasn't prepared for was it suddenly became massively successful, and I was suddenly under even more scrutiny and felt even more self-conscious. So it was a horrible recipe for disaster. But yeah, in answer to your question, I do think, you know, had I been something else, it might not have been cocaine that was my problem, you know, because it's an expensive drug, but I'm sure it would have been alcohol or something would have
hitting the pub every night and just spending too much time, all of that.
Yeah, I think it's quite likely, because I think my problems particularly went back to childhood and to my teenage years, you know, and there was a lot of stuff there that I had really never, you know, dealt with, and not until recently anyway.
You know, you mentioned sort of hiding in plain sight, the scrutiny of being, you know, the front man of a wildly successful band. I think that, you know, it seems like the press in the UK is sort of this legendary thing. And, you know, you guys have benefited from it. You've benefited from it, but I'm sure there's times where it hasn't been so kind. Is that something that, like, you've ever paid attention to? Is it something that you read or don't read, or?
Well, yeah, it is, and it's really hurt me in the past. I think you know, there's it's funny, I was thinking back to the very early days of Keane. You know, The Enemy is a great example, you know, of a magazine that kind of determines whether something's cool or not.
Yeah, it's hot or not, sliding scale.
Yeah, and you know, if they're on side, they're a great ally, and if they're not, certainly at least 10 years ago, this is, and maybe less true now, but they could definitely, they were a big ally or a big enemy, and it always felt like that. And what I found really fascinating was in the very early days of Keane, before we'd become successful, but we had a single out on an independent record label, and we were just gigging around the country, and we were just you know, quite an interesting indie rock band. The Enemy loved us. Sure. They really loved us. And, you know, I remember them reviewing the single that we'd released on this independent label, you know, 5 out of 5, great stuff, you know, weird and brilliant, you know, and then we got a record deal and we re-released that song maybe 6 months later, we re-released it, same song, same production, and they absolutely panned it because by that point we'd become too successful.
It had shifted for them.
Too mainstream, So there's definitely, So I suppose what I'm saying is there's a fickle quality. And I think the British press in general love to build someone up, to knock them down. And, my opinion of that is that it's probably for the most part people, working at newspapers or the country in general projects its own kind of repressed hate of itself into other, into celebrities' lives. So we can build them up, then we can knock them down and we'll show them. But actually, it's something to do with a very kind of broken part of, the British psyche.
Where they're at. And it's cathartic to knock down someone that's successful.
Absolutely.
Because then maybe it's like, f them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does feel good on some level. But it's interesting to talk to somebody who's been the subject of that. Because it's rare to be on the other side of that. Whereas it's like,
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Knowing that, though, like intellectually you go, I get this is what's going on. This is sort of how it works. Do you still let it affect you?
Well, I have really had to kind of steel myself ready for this moment because I was aware that I was taking quite a big risk writing about addiction. Oh, yeah, here's another kind of musician, too much money, he's got himself in trouble. That was my fear. And funnily enough, something my therapist said to me, which I thought was a brilliant point. He said this a few months ago before the record came out. He said, you have to have a very thin skin to make a record and then a very thick skin to take it out there into the big wide world. And you've got to make that transition almost overnight. And I really understand what he's saying. It's like, obviously you have to be so in touch with yourself as a person to write authentic music.
It takes a vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to lay yourself bare. But then when you take it out into the big wide world, particularly with social media, timelines full of vitriol and people's opinions.
Absolutely.
It's a very scary place, and you have to be bulletproof for that kind of stuff.
And it's almost a different person. It's a weird thing that you can be the sort of person that can create something so vulnerable.
Yeah.
But then you're supposed to be this other person that's just like, that's my shit. Like, enjoy it. And I don't care what you say. It's like, how can you be both those people?
It's very difficult. It's a very hard thing to do. And I knew that I was kind of setting myself up big time for, as I say, the kind of cynical view of my story. But actually, it's funny, I think the landscape has changed quite a lot in the last 10 or 15 years in the UK. I think the press has had to change its attitude because we've had a big inquiry, the Leveson inquiry, which, really took them to task on some of the kind of practices that they'd used over the years.
Was this the phone hacking?
Phone hacking, and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Just kind of general intrusion. The paparazzi, you can basically order them to stay away. And so there are definitely changes in that respect. There's also change in terms of mental health and how mental health is being viewed in the UK. I don't know whether it's the same here.
Absolutely. There's a huge initiative. Like, I think in North America specifically, like in Canada too, there's definitely a stronger need to understand why people are going through their issues and have empathy as opposed to having a stigma around somebody needing to talk to somebody like a therapist. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we all look after, there's a big emphasis at least on looking after yourself physically, got to go to the gym and got to eat healthily and all of these things. And yes, those things are important, but nothing is as important as how you feel about yourself and your life, And actually, I do think it's strange that we're so resistant to, a high street therapist or, or at least even just talking openly to each other about what's going on, particularly men, but, it's definitely men and women. But that idea of, if I share something that I feel ashamed of particularly, then how are people going to view me?
It's the fear of judgment.
Yeah.
And it's sort of debilitating.
And actually the truth is, if, for example, my wife or friend or whoever it is feels something really deeply sad or painful and they share it with me, there's never a time in my life where I feel more connected to that person. Like in happiness, it's fine. You're just happy. It's quite isolated happiness. It's like, oh, I feel happy. You know,
Yeah.
You might be in a group of people, you're all laughing and joking around, but it's not as, to me, it doesn't seem as deep an experience as when someone breaks down with you. It's so affecting, you know, and so powerful, and it makes you feel alive as a human being when someone connects with you in that way.
I think you're learning. They say like you don't really find out who people are when things are going well. It's like you find out who people are when things aren't going well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
right.
who you are really when it's at its worst, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. I guess lastly, you know, you have the solo record. Are you someone that sort of thinks a lot about the future, meaning like, this is my plan for a decade from now? Are you a planner? Are you on to the next?
I'm not a planner. You know, I think, no, I'm not really a planner. And I think the more, you know, I've watched these, I occasionally watch these property shows at home, right? Where people say, you know, they've got a kind of 5-year plan. These young couples, they've got a 5-year plan and they've got everything mapped out. And I look at that and I think that is absolutely terrifying. Like, you know, why would you want to map it all out? You know, yeah, I can understand there are considerations and whatever that you need to make for the future. But as a general rule, I think life is much better and more enjoyable when you are more just when you are open to what might come in. And that's been my experience of the last couple of years, is that I feel like I have this openness and I'm not going into things kind of cynically, which is the way I used to be. And I'm not going into it thinking, when can I get this done with so I can go on holiday? Or, you know, I'm thinking, right, what's this situation, or what's, you know, working with this person going to offer me? And how can I, you know, how will I enjoy it? I mean, and it doesn't always happen, but generally I think having that attitude has been really healthy. So the only plan I've got for the future is I want to work with lots of different people in different genres and find out where I'm going next by doing that. And, you know, but yeah, I mean, that's a pretty loose plan, if it's a plan at all.
But it sounds like you're going into it positively and open to whatever comes your way. Thanks so much for your time, man.
It was a real pleasure.
All right. Appreciate it. Welcome to The Dessert, where we welcome our great friend and pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham, on to talk about maybe something happening in pop culture, music, movies.
How was Hawaii, Mike?
It was awesome.
Good. You're back. I missed you.
The band's
I wanted
back
to say
together.
that.
We got the whole band back together.
So what did you ask? Movies? Because this is what I wanted it to be was the Oscar episode.
Ooh, timely.
And while you were, because the Oscars are this Sunday at the time of this recording.
That's true.
So I wanted to see all of the films while you were gone in Hawaii and have you be very proud of me that I did so much practical work. But
Mike's like a father figure.
Like I saw. No, we ended on kind of a bad note, maybe some might think after last episode. But after Mike's, you know, you miss a brother when he's gone. You kind of hate a brother when he's around,
Especially me.
But I was thinking, like, I don't like reviews when they're so redundant. Like I saw La La Land. Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be very interesting if, because sometimes people accuse me of having a contrarian opinion on something popular, but I really loved La La Land. And I don't think there's anything interesting about that to add to the 15 Oscar nominations or whatever it has, like a glowing review. Like, I don't really think that's what I'm about. And then I tried seeing...
Sorry, first though, but the reason you even say that is because there's sort of a subsection of people. There's a backlash against La La Land right now.
I think it's a vocal minority, and people are just doing that to kind of...
Be contrarians.
Exactly. Like, a lot of people were... Not a lot. I saw this one girl who kind of was irking me online. She was like, I haven't even seen La La Land, and I already know I hate it. And, you know, that stuff bothers me. And so that... It's kind of a hack opinion, in my humble opinion, to say you don't like something before you've seen it.
Gotcha.
I don't like people like that. People's opinions like that, just to clarify. So then I saw a movie called Patterson with Adam Driver.
Yeah.
It's a Jim Jarmusch film. And I was like, I bet you a lot of people do not like this film, which was Oscar nominated. And I'm going to tell everyone I do like it, which I did. I thought it was a great film. Problem is, it turns out that film was not nominated for any Oscars. So then I got thinking about it. And I was like, let's not talk about the things that everyone's already seen. Because I feel like this year, more than most, people have seen.
Yeah, I've seen like 8 of the 9 movies. I haven't seen.
And that's a bad sign when Max has seen 8 of the 9 movies and I've only seen like 1 or 2. So I wasn't even intending to talk about this, but we just came out of a sales meeting. We literally, where they were talking about products.
Yeah.
And I just, I've been in kind of bad health lately. Like, do you guys ever get your butts checked out?
Like maybe by ladies when I'm walking by.
That was the perfect setup. I was just watching Mike's like the little hamster on the wheel go.
It was going very slow today. I was like, I think someone's waiting for me. Was that a
I
setup?
was like, this will be a good setup.
You mean like our
butts, like the inside of the asshole. Like I
No.
always feel like I have to shit lately.
Okay.
And it sounds like kind of a funny problem. It's one of the most.
Mike just looked at producer Max going, "Is this usable?"
Yeah, where are we going with
It's one of the most like anxiety-inducing things. Imagine you always felt like you when you do the first plop and then the second plop's coming. It always feels like the second plop is about to come, but I'm completely empty.
You're always in anticipation. You always have the
Right.
feeling like you need to go to the bathroom, but nothing comes.
Exactly. And it is anytime you talk about something like this, it's kind of humorous, like, haha, Shane's talking about poopy. But it actually is driving me crazy.
When did it
And
start?
It started the day like Mike left, pretty much. And I don't know if it was like, I miss Mikey. I'm going to shit myself. But I remember on Howard.
Wait a second. I've been gone for 10 days.
I know. And it's been 10 days of hell, Mike.
Oh my goodness.
I feel better just because sales was talking about products that you want to endorse, right? Like how can we get more sponsors? And I remember years of listening to Howard Stern, he would always talk about Squatty Potty. And it's like, people don't know, like in Western culture, we don't shit the way you're supposed to shit. You're actually supposed to squat when you poop because it creates the better angle where you're not obstructed.
For your intestines?
Yeah, your shit gets a clean like thump. And right now it's kind of like, and it goes through this awkward path.
Okay.
So I'll show you the product.
Shane is going into his bag.
Here, describe it, Mike.
Oh my goodness. It's called Squatty Potty. It's actually branded at the bottom here. Maybe I shouldn't touch it.
Yeah, this is a $30 million like in sales company just last year. Like it's huge. Like Howard Stern loves this. So I was like, okay, if it's being so endorsed, it's a portable thingy.
Oh my
So I bring
goodness.
this around to
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to
washrooms.
take a photo of this so we can show people.
So you put this.
So when I'm shitting, I carry this around. And then when I go to the toilet, I put this under the toilet bowl. And
Oh, it's for your feet.
I
for
thought
your
it was for your butt.
No. So you can squat. And this is like the beginner model, but it comes with one that's a few inches.
Your potty training.
Yeah, exactly. And I found it has improved my shits.
So,
yeah.
so for our listeners, essentially, it's kind of like a footstool that he puts in front of the toilet. He puts his feet up on it. It's about a foot off the ground, which kind of brings his knees up toward his chin or his chest. And I guess that's a more conducive way to get the feces through your intestine.
Honestly, everyone, I'm serious here. Look it up. It's scientifically proven. It's been on Dr. Oz. There's amazing promos for
Oh,
it.
Dr. Oz.
He's legit. You don't get to be the number one TV doctor if you're not legit.
Yeah, Dr.
That's
Phil
Dr.
agrees.
Phil. Thanks for stepping on my joke, Mike. I can set myself up too. But yeah, that is not even what I intended to come here and talk about. But I thought I actually endorse Squatty Potty, and it is talked about on podcasts. So hey, let's get Squatty Potty on board. I'm a legit,
You're a user of
bowel
it.
problem person.
Now, do you talk to your wife, Alex, about these problems?
Yeah, she loves the Squatty Potty. Because I got
So
one.
it's not like
I got one for home. This is the travel version.
Okay.
So, and there's one that comes in like this nice teak wood, and my wife's birthday is right around the corner. I'm serious. I'm thinking of getting it for her.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was great programs that people are missing out, especially if you're a male. And you can cut this part out because maybe the toilet stuff isn't
No,
up.
I thought that the Squatty Potty was a perfect segment.
We'll put
I'm
a
the poop
disclaimer
culture
at the front of the
aficionado.
episode.
Yeah, we'll
Just be like, this is
Wait.
for a mature audience.
Max, did you miss my line? I said I'm the poop culture aficionado.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
that was good.
Thanks.
I like it.
All right. So what's the segue here?
There is none. There's no salvaging that.
But so when I actually got this idea from you, Max, because I was going through Instagram stories, and you do a ton, right? So normally I don't have the volume up, but I decided to turn the volume on because I noticed you were watching The Bachelor.
Oh, yeah.
And you were just like laughing your ass off, having a great time. You knew the characters' names. You had like this girl's incorrigible.
Yeah.
Like to say like incorrigible, I think. Or
I was
something.
going to say incredible, but whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whatever.
But-
Bad pun.
And you were watching it the way I watched The Bachelor. I must say, The Bachelor is one of the best shows on TV.
It's incredible. Okay, I only got into it in like 3 weeks ago because Lauren has just gotten into it, and you watch an episode, and then I was drawn in immediately, and then I was away on tour, and she made me watch the one that I was missing, and then on Monday we watched the one together. So it's like a thing we have together. And my sister and I, it turns out my sister watches it. Turns out everybody watches it. I feel like it's the one nonpartisan thing in America, and it literally brings together everybody from every corner of the continent.
And I feel like we're at a point now where like guys don't need to be embarrassed to admit they watch it. Like we're headed that way.
Oh,
because
yeah.
honestly, if you're a guy listening, watch The Bachelor. Your girlfriend or your Tinder date will love you. They'll find it so endearing. You'll have such a great time. It's such a cheap date. And you get to do a running. It's one of those shows where you have a license to do a running commentary throughout.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, you can just be talking the whole time. Yeah.
And they just recently made history. I'm not sure if you know this, but I do know this, yeah. The first black Bachelorette is coming out from this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that her name?
Yeah, I think it's Rachel.
Rachel, yeah. Which is kind of funny because it's obviously letting people know that Rachel's not going to win.
Yeah, everyone's really confused with why they announced that before the show was even
I know why they did it. This is speculation, but
I know why.
Pull up your Squatty Potty and have a listen.
It's because I feel like a large section of the black community feels like they're not represented on the show, which historically they only have one token black person show up, and they always get booted off first. This year they made a real effort to have like I think there was 4 or 5 black girls.
Oh, yeah.
And one's actually making it to the final 4 right now. The reason to announce that she's going to be the next Bachelorette is to garner excitement from the black community so they can come over, watch these episodes to get to know her a little bit. So when the actual Bachelorette happens, they kind of have a little bit of her backstory.
So it's actually a really clever way to engage an audience that maybe isn't watching.
Exactly. So I think the first black Bachelorette, which is the first time they've ever had a black, this show's been for like 18 seasons or something like that. The first time they've ever had a black contestant, it's going to do gangbusters. I'm just curious. I wonder if they're going to do an all black contestant pool or 50-50.
No, it'll be like normal. I bet you it'll be like.
But this is your first season watching, Max. You don't know the history of how the black people have not been represented at all. This is the most they ever have.
If I'm a producer of the show, I just go by the demographics of the country. I'd say, okay, the country is 17% Hispanic, so we try to get that percentage in. It's 12% black. It's 2% Asian. That's what I would do. That's sort of the foolproof version, I think.
That's an interesting question, though. So if you're the Bachelor or the Bachelorette and you have a certain preference, do you talk about your aesthetic preferences before you go on the show?
There's probably some planning with the producers. It's so calculated.
They just get basically the hottest people possible. The hottest person usually wins. Minus Nick, who has some very odd tastes, I find. He let go of half the model chicks in the first...
I love Nick, though, as a contestant. He's kind of the perfect bachelor.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, do you know his history that he's actually... Okay.
Yeah, that he was left at the altar twice or something.
Yes,
yeah.
And then he went on Bachelor in Paradise, which is pretty much just like a fest. And he was kind of a villain before.
Yeah, and then he
and
became the good guy in Bachelor in the Paradise.
you have been paying attention. I like that. See,
Yeah,
this is good. Now we
super-
can talk more,
I'm
Max.
super into it.
You guys have found something finally.
I know who you want to win this season.
Well, who do you think it would be? Oh,
You probably are in love with Corinne, though, in some like endearing way.
No, Corinne's like the most obnoxious person on the show. And so hateable. But amazing. She's like the perfect villain. She's the villain on the show.
She's the lovable villain. At first, she was the villain. Now every girl loves her. Because she's real. You know, she has that like Trump thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Like when you're not the president, it's kind of like cool. It's like, this person's real.
This person's real. The Vanessa, the Montreal chick,
Yeah.
her family was way too intense for Nick. Nick's like, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Here's the thing. She's going to win.
No.
Okay, Corinne's not going to win.
Rachel, we already know isn't going to win.
No. And you think Raven, like, no offense to Raven. Raven's a sweet girl. She's just not hot enough.
Yeah, but
Historically, this show does not let anyone who's not a 10 win.
no. Here's my. This is what I think is happening. Sorry for Mike listening to this conversation. She's like, I do
Mike
not
has
care.
left.
Is that Nick has probably realized, man, I did not eliminate people correctly. The final 4 contestants,
Oh, he's stuck with a
he's
bad
probably
bracket.
stuck with because it's like Rachel's by far the most impressive, but he was getting really grilled on the race thing, and I don't think he's the type of person to be like, this is going to be the rest of my life.
No.
He does not strike me as that kind of guy. With Vanessa, her family was way too intense and like was really grilling him. Corinne was just like a hilarious, like Florida rich family. That was like the whole thing.
That's a dream family. Like, she bought Nick
It's not a dream family though, because he's
outfit.
like just smart enough to like not want. But hold on, and then Raven, you're right. Too much of a country bumpkin. I don't think he wants to go spend his time in Arkansas. So I think he goes with Corinne, and they never get married. I think I think he ends up with Corinne, but then when he calls off the wedding, no one's mad about it. Corinne's not even mad about it.
What do
She
you
just
think
got to
of
be
Max?
famous.
You just said that someone else would win.
I know this show inside and out, and I know you've
How long have you
proven.
been watching it?
Oh,
for,
this
though?
is going to be so good. Now we're going to have a definitive answer to.
I just know Vanessa's going to win. You can tell historically they never pick people under 25. It's always the person 27-ish. She's got her shit together. Her family's a little cuckoo, but they all are.
Yeah, that's true.
He's going to just deal with it. And yeah, they ultimately all dissolve their marriages anyway. So it doesn't matter who you're going to dissolve it with. The winners typically don't actually get married.
Now, does he sleep with the final 4? Do they all have?
They have a thing where they go in a fantasy suite, which basically is like the room or the boom boom room. And yeah, they just go in there and they do it.
Is this something that nobody ever talks about?
No, it's a known thing.
But I mean, like they talk about, like, oh, did you sleep with that girl? Did you sleep with that girl? Or do they just? Is there like in play
It
company?
causes high drama, and sometimes people will try to have sexual relations before it's fantasy suite time, and that was Corinne's move.
So Corinne, yeah, like Mike, I had no interest in reality television up to this point, but literally, like now I'm hooked, and I totally get it. And also, like Simmons was just on the Ringers podcast. He was just on Julia Letman.
Oh, I get it. I know this is like a huge popular phenomenon. I've only ever seen maybe 2 minutes in total of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. I'm just interested in the mechanics of it, and more so, if you were The Bachelor, how do you think you would play it, Max?
Oh, well, I'm not Nick though. So if it were up to me, I'd go.
No, I mean just in general. Say you're on that show.
Oh, I could. But here's the thing: I could never imagine. Do you think I'd subject my family to be on that show? Of course not. That'd be crazy. And I was talking to Lauren about this too. It's like, can you imagine, like, you bring home some random dude to meet Brent Bentham? Like, no, of course not. Like,
Yeah.
I think you have to be a certain type of person looking for a certain type of thing to be on that show.
Shane, would you go on The Bachelor?
Well, of course. Yes. But here's the thing. I remember when we started the pod and I was like really obsessed with Tinder. I felt like that was a real life version of The Bachelor. And I thought, this is the greatest invention. You have like 20 girls, and in my mind, they're all vying for my attention. And I'm like just the one guy, and I get to pick who I go on the date with. And then I'm weaning it down. And then in the end, I got a bride out of it. You know what I mean?
Oh, you did real life Bachelor.
I felt like that, and it was so exhilarating. And it would be. I talk to this about my wife all the time. I was like, "Would you let me go on The Bachelor?" And she always says, "Hell no." But we always think it would be would be so fun. And they never have a guy who's funny on The Bachelor ever.
Oh yeah,
and I would love to be the first funny Bachelor. Because I don't really think it works if you're a funny guy, because you need to take it so
You
seriously.
need to take the whole thing seriously.
Yeah, like is there a sense of irony or the fact
No,
that this
that's
is
the thing.
all like
There's not. It's
There's
like
an artifice to the whole.
No, it's real, but these people are really lacking a chromosome when it comes to like how life is,
and, and irony and sense of humor.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
they don't have the full package. They're missing that one thing, which is hilarious as a viewer because you get to mock them the entire time.
Totally. So Nick will say to the camera like 4 times in the span of 20 minutes about 4 different girls. He'll say, she's just an incredible girl. I feel like this connection we have is so strong. I can see ourselves in the future together. And then like 5 minutes later, he'll say the same thing. And so anyway, on these hometown dates, he meets each one of their families. And then the 4th one is this Montreal Italian family. And on each one up to this point, he's asked for permission to marry the daughter. And each father's like, well, I know things are going pretty quick, but I trust my daughter, and you have my blessings, right? And then he gets to the Montreal father, and the Montreal father like kind of clues in. He's like, have you had this conversation with 3 other people up to this point? It was so uncomfortable. And Nick couldn't lie. He's like, I have.
And the best too is the girls always have to say, at a certain point they have to say, I love you.
Yeah.
But the guy, like for ratings purposes, he can't be like, I love you too.
So he just starts making out with them.
Yeah, it's like, I love you. Awkward pause, goes in for the 10-second makeout. Yeah. And I always find that the funniest part.
Oh, it's incredible. Also,
do you think that the producers are telling him not to say I love you?
Of course. This is a very, producers have a huge hand in it. And in fact, even the people who get sent home, the producers pick. The Bachelor doesn't choose who doesn't get the roses.
He only gets to choose what in the final 4?
He gets to choose who he thinks is going to stay. Yeah, the top 4 pretty much. But they'll keep an exciting person who's good for ratings, who's a complete nut job.
So it sounds like this is this Corinne girl. Is that how you say her name?
No, Corinne is super hot and easy and fun to get along with.
So Nick will be talking to the camera about each one of these girls and what makes them special, and he'd be like, Rachel, her dad's a judge. She's a lawyer. She's so smart. She's by far the most put together person on the show. And each one, he could say something really nice and flattering. Like the Montreal girl, she works with special needs kids. And then Corinne is literally a 24-year-old with a nanny. She literally will go to the mall and drop $5,000 on a sweater. She's totally South Florida, completely out to lunch. And when he talks about Corinne, he can't wipe the smile off his face because she's just a hot blonde. And so he's been saying the nicest things about the other people. And he's but he just can't hide anything. He's like, Corinne, she's got some spunk to her.
Yeah. A lot of sexual chemistry between us. Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, they say that a lot.
And Max, you're choosing her to win.
Only because I think he painted himself into a corner, and it'll be the most easy one to get out of the relationship with.
And Shane, who do you pick?
Vanessa. And who I very much dislike.
No, she is Shane's nightmare. Lauren was saying right from the beginning, she's pulling tantrums whenever Corinne was doing anything.
Oh my God. It annoys me so much. She's a nightmare. I know this has gotten long in the tooth, but I want to say The Bachelor is a good introductory show. The actual best reality show on TV is Vanderpump Rules. I'm telling you, that's the real crown jewel in exciting reality TV shows. And then there's another one called Are You the One? That's my third favorite. And that's where they get 20 people and they try to find their perfect match. It's an MTV show, but
I think you have maybe for the first time and most successfully fulfilled your role as the pop culture aficionado.
I know. That's what I mean. I think if the opinion is so popular, I should only introduce people to exciting things that they're not watching, not something that they already are, and I'm giving a redundant opinion that's been out there.
Hey, what do you think about doing a Bachelor recap? Maybe we get Alex and Lauren on the close next week or something like that.
When's the finale?
Well, there's a twist at the end of this past week, which I will not talk about because you haven't seen it yet, right?
I've seen it.
Oh yeah, you did see it, yeah. But let's talk about
what was the twist?
When Andy showed up.
Oh, you didn't see that a mile away, Max?
No, I'm new to the show.
Total newbie.
That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you for listening.
The Mike on Much podcast is produced by me.
And I'm your host, Mike Veerman.
Add us on Instagram and Twitter, Mike on Much. Please subscribe to the show. Tell your friends about the show. Leave a comment in the ratings. It all helps a big deal.
See you next week. We don't die on the weekend.
Later.